Hello, everyone. I'm Gemma Starr, and welcome to another episode of Man Speak. Man Speak is an offshoot to our Heart Warrior series where some of our Heart Warriors come back and they talk for a whole nother episode on a subject particularly close to their hearts, they're embodied in, able to teach in, passionate about, full of wisdom. And today is no exception. If you don't already know, we did finish the Heart Warrior series, 100 men I interviewed in just over a year. Most of them were within the year, I think about 98 of them. And it took me a little while to do, well, especially the last one, but well worth watching if you haven't already seen it. So today we have the return of our number 84th Heart Warrior, and that is Andrew Mioch. Now, Andrew is a world-renowned sex coach. He's also a best-selling author. And if you haven't seen his episode of Heart Warriors, it was great because it was actually 2 days because of internet problems that I merged together and to make one great big juicy episode. So Andrew is back today, and his chosen subject is overcoming performance anxiety. And this, of course, is a show about men speaking to other men. So really excited to hear Andrew's wisdom on this topic, and I really hope it helps a lot of you men out there. It's probably a subject that us women maybe don't consider as much as we could. So it'll be great for the women listening. And I haven't come armed with a list of questions. So Andrew hopefully is going to lead the way here, and I will just go along with the flow. So thank you for being here and enjoy. Andrew Mioch, so happy to have you here again. How have you been?
Gemma, it is so great to be back. Thank you for having me. I am absolutely great. And as I was saying before, my weather looks like your background. I'm going to have a white Christmas, not a 40-degree Australian Christmas, which I'm used to.
Yeah, well, we just started summer on the 1st of December. So, yeah, it's certainly living up to its name. So, you know what I loved about how this all happened? Because I approached you about 3 months ago and said, hey, I'd love to have you back after our Heart Warriors and let's do a man speak. And I said, I asked the man to choose the topic because it's men speaking to other men. And back then, months ago, you sort of threw out, the truth about dominance. Great. But when we connected again, this week, and I was said, is that, the title that you want? You're like, no, there's a subject that's even more important that I've got so much information on that I want to bring to the men watching, and of course the women. So, and that is overcoming performance anxiety, which is so good because I don't think we've touched on it much. I know we touched on it in our Heart Warrior interview, but now to bring this back and go into a lot of detail. And as for us women, maybe we don't give it the thought it deserves. It's obviously a man's issue, and one that I'm interested to find out a lot more too. So you're obviously going to be doing most of the talking, but I was thinking about it today. And could you break it down into 3 main areas, like 1, the erection, 2, the duration, and 3, the expectation to make her orgasm?
Wow.
And would you add anything else? And obviously we'll go into each section and expand.
Yeah, I want to tie this in. I really believe performance anxiety is not just gender for men, it's for women as well. It's this expectation to perform. So we start at the fundamental basics. How many people are like, I have performance anxiety? That's the problem, because you're trying to put on an act instead of being present and in the moment with the person. Now, that's a very high level overview. And I've got very deep frameworks where we can dive into today, because everyone's like, well, especially in the men's movement, there's a lot of men's coaches who talk about, okay, let's talk about performance anxiety in the bedroom, but how? How can we really break this down and distill this so then we have practical application? And yes, this will tie into what you're saying about erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. So erectile dysfunction is men who can't get it up or keep it up. And then it goes into as well for premature ejaculation, men who they come too quickly and they can't control their ejaculation. Or there's men as well who have the thing called delayed ejaculation, which is like they can't actually come. And it all stems from three areas: mental, emotional, and physical. 90% of the men I work with, it is mental and emotional. The stories they have around their sexuality. And then there are that 10% of men that I've worked with from my experience that when it comes to like getting it up and keeping it up, or all the performance stuff we're talking about, it could be maybe an inflamed prostate, or there's other things going around in their pelvic area. Maybe they've actually had an operation around there, but it's usually few and far between. A lot of disconnection from men to their heart and the stories that are running them, and they're unable to express what's going on, which is holding them back, which is like clenching their chest, tense here, tense in the throat, tense throughout the whole body, and then causes tension down in the genital area, which doesn't cause function, is the best way to describe it.
Fascinating. I love that breakdown. Of course, with this, it's going to direct men into their heart awareness. So, yeah, please continue.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. So how can I explain this? Most people have heard of the Wim Hof method, of like this breathing exercises, oxygenating the body, and all the other benefits of this. What I've actually created is a Mioch method, which is like a very similar 10-minute meditation. Sorry, it's 11 minutes, but I want to give this to your audience. And the reason I want to do this is I want to get this to the world. And I've been focusing on this for a decade now, and hence I want to change this about performance anxiety. So many men and women have performance anxiety, and I've tested this meditation on men and women at my high-level retreats to see how they can express. And I'll go into the details about how this works. I see that men and women, or speak specifically to men just for this podcast today, is like they're so stuck in their minds. They can't express themselves. They're not moving their body. They're not breathing. And they're really afraid of three different energies, usually like traits that they're having trouble to express, because everyone's like, express your sexuality. And I don't really like when the sexual educators out there, they just point blank say to someone, what's your fantasy? What do you like? It's like, that is such a loaded question, because some people go, I don't know. And that's fair enough, because there's so much stories that are holding them back from diving into what they actually like, and they're not having that permission to do the thing in the bedroom they truly want, because that's what's holding them back. And as soon as men get to the bedroom, because we're being brought up into this society, now you are meant to be great in bed because you are a man. It's like, what? How is someone meant to be good at anything if they've never been taught, opposed to some sexual education at school, which was condom, banana, awkward teacher, or doctor? Even though I went to a doctor the other day to get an STD check, and I was talking about different types of penetration just to see like what possible STDs things might be popping up, and how uncomfortable that man was to discuss this. And this is the people that we look up to in society because they have a certification. So that's a little bit disheartening. So I didn't even go into premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. And if I did, it would have been a stock standard, take this pill. That's pretty much it. Which I'm like, there has to be a better way in society. And the biggest thing I see that men is suffering with is they can't express themselves in the bedroom. Same with women. So when I break this down, I break it down to a method of the soft, silly, and savage, and how men can really dive into those different energies, and being that how gentle can they be in the bedroom, and as soft like really says, like how slow can they go and flow. Silly, how much playfulness can they bring into the bedroom? Because it's like, as soon as a man gets to the bedroom, it's usually like, now it's time for business. And then they lock up. I'm like, hang on a second, let's bring that playfulness, that like, you're not taking yourself so seriously. So then your whole nervous system relaxes, because then with the whole relaxed nervous system, you're most likely going to be able to quote unquote perform better. And then the savagery, bringing out that beast inside the bedroom. And when I talk about I'm here to help empower men to be powerful masculine leaders inside and outside the bedroom, I really see it as how you do one thing is how you do the other thing. And then when I really break down this meditation in a second, which I can't wait to get to your audience, for them to try this for themselves, then they can really feel this depth. I'm like, wow, I'm feeling more expressed in my soft, silly, and savage. And then we tie it into the how we do this. We do this through breath, sound, movement, vocal expression. And then when that ends up happening, now they can go soft, silly, and savage, and breath, sound, movement, vocal expression through each of the different energies or traits, whatever you want to call them. Then when you're guided through this, we're meant to be just good in the bedroom, as I said before. But when we practice this solo cultivation, and then when we're with a partner, we feel way more expressed. So I always say this in a lighthearted way. The way you masturbate is the way you fuck. So most men, they're bent over the computer, tensing themselves, tensing their whole body, and they're just like really going for it as quick as they can, watching porn, which is really deteriorating for the brain, and doing this for such a long time of tensing the body and then hoping someone doesn't walk in. So then that causes so much tension. Instead, how relaxed can they be in this state? Before we even do self-pleasure practices, which most sexual practitioners talk about, how can we have this imagination of bringing in this perfect partner, doing this exercise? And this is all backed up by psychosexuality and the psychocybernetics. There's a really beautiful book, Psychocybernetics, as I just mentioned, which ties into the imagination and the creativity and the mind-body connection. And then while we map this out in a meditation state and consistently do this over and over, what will happen through the soft, silly, and savage and the breath, sound, movement, vocal expression, it allows someone to be more free in their expression of who they are.
So good, Andrew. So I was thinking when you mentioned that, most men got their sexual education from school. Well, what about porn? I would think that most men
Correct.
got their sexual education from porn. And how has that increased performance anxiety?
Yeah, because when you see these men on on the screen, there's so much to go into on that, but it's like the unrealistic expectations of how a man's meant to look, how he's meant to do things in the bedroom. What noises is she making? How is she showing up? How is he showing up? Like, does this mean that this guy's 6'5" and absolutely jacked and like ripped in every place, and he has a 10-inch member that now it's like the insecurities that creates in men and the unrealistic things of actual intimacy and sex. So that's more just like, if I put it like that, that's just fucking. It's not making love for a lot of the time. There's a huge difference between those two. And then when men watch that over and over, or they see really rough, intense sex, they're only going to one variation and that's it. And where's the communication prior to this? Where's all the in-depth conversation and connection with the partner? Where's the intimacy outside the bedroom? How are these men showing up before the actual interaction with the woman? Instead, it's just like, boom, it's there. It's like, get it done, hit and run as quickly as they can, opposed to going, what's behind all this? And psychologically, I see men when they talk to me and they've watched a lot of porn, they're actually trying to be someone. Again, it goes into the porn. They're trying to be that porn star or their favorite actress, or if a woman isn't giving the certain reactions that they saw on a porn, then they go, is there something wrong with them? But then, of course, it's porn acting. So it's an act. So we could talk a whole hour and a half just on that alone, 2 hours or days on days, but just see it as an act and it's not real. And they're there to elicit a certain response so then you can have a peak experience behind your computer.
So I loved what you said about, okay, so that the porn is just fucking and there's obviously making love. So how would you differentiate that? And how, if a man learns the former through pornography, does he need to learn making love, or does that come naturally with the connection?
This is the thing. On my teachings, I'm not teaching men anything. I'm helping them unlearn a lot of stuff that a doctor, that porn, that uncle, that friend from high school told them. All this innate wisdom is inside of our body. And I can explain this through the meditation that I can actually teach on here and break it down into nuances to explain, like, I'm not teaching men anything. I'm just helping them just dissolve all these unrealistic fantasies and all this junk that's in their head of who they think they have to be. Of course, when they're most freely, so two things, they freely express themselves and it'll dissolve the performance anxiety. And cool, if like, say this is a sex toy, if people use sex toys, like I sometimes teach, it's like holding that on a clitoris, if they want to use a sex toy, great. It's not that hard to do the technical aspect. But this aspect of I'll speak myself, when I become more emotionally free and sexually free in my body, that limbic resonance with the other person, they will feel that and allow them to be more sexually free and open up. So that's why sexuality always starts with myself, dissolving a lot of my own shame and guilt around my sexuality. Then I'm around that person, breathing deeply, they feel that. And then we can just like in a woo-woo way of saying it, then our bodies can move more in a rhythmic dance instead of trying to force this dance to happen. So that's what's happening. People are trying to force this dance opposed to the allowance of what's already innately there.
Great. So you did mention the heart, so one of my favorite
Hey,
subjects.
beautiful.
Now, men are becoming more aware, of to differentiate between the heart energies and the mind energies. But for men who still maybe are not, I don't know, I don't know if it's easier for women, but the question I want to ask is for you to help men connect to that heart energy.
Yeah. Well, this is how I see dominance. Dominance is leadership. Leadership is service. Service is love. And first, they have to understand how to be dominant for themselves. Self-leadership, how to serve themselves, and how to self-love. Because how can you love someone else if you can't love yourself? That old cliche. But then when we look at dominance, dominance is just purely leadership. And why would a woman follow a man if she sees that his dominance isn't on point? And the difference between dominance and domineering is dominance is like love. Domineering is hate and manipulation. So when there's so much bullshit out there where people are like, oh, that person is dominating that other person. It's like, hang on a second. That's the wrong word, the wrong use of that word. That person is domineering and manipulating that other person because dominance is one person leading, the other person leading with consent. Being domineering is one person forcing the other person without consent. There's people, I'm very intentional with my language, and I don't feel people are, they don't look into what they're actually saying and how intentional they are. So we look at the heart warrior, which we were talking about before, and the heart. Dominance is leading with that heart because they've led themselves with their heart. But then back in the day when I was very egotistical and I wasn't leading so much with my heart, I was leading from a domineering place. And then I was meeting domineering women. So it was this constant flux of dysfunctional relationships. So when a man's like, oh, she's treating me like this, I'm like, no, you're treating yourself like this. And she's treating you as a mirror of how you're actually treating yourself. And I had to really reflect deeply on that for myself. I don't know if I told you, Gemma, I'm actually engaged since we last spoke. So
Congratulations.
I've gone full circle of being a cheating douchebag of like having 3 monogamous relationships, fucking a married woman and her best friend, hanging out with bikies and gangsters, to being in a loving connection that's super healthy and functional, and working on how can I keep building this relationship in a loving way where before it was chaos and I didn't understand that. So
Wow, that's great news. Well done.
thank you.
So I know we might be going a little bit off topic now, but I've got to ask this question, seeing you, so willingly just showed us how far you've come in, let's say, relationship evolution. So what are you getting now from one woman and a deep committed relationship that you weren't getting from whatever you called yourself before,
Oh,
like
sure.
multiple women and maybe more superficial relationships?
What is it for me? I feel this depth of freedom that I have with this person. People have this perception you have freedom when you're single. How free can you really be when it's like, who's going to be the next woman I'm going to date? That woman bails on a date that we're organizing. Then multiple women and juggling all of that. And also the degeneracy and the certain groups I was part of back then. And I was like, is this freedom? Is this really freedom? Instead of the depth I can create with one person and not settling, but rising with a woman who sees me for who I am. And this is, I want to be like, put this completely on the table, which is, so most men deeply think about this behind the scenes, but they won't admit it because it's one of the most rawest thing to admit. And how many men have brought this up? Andrew, I don't want to be with this woman purely from the fact of I can be with more attractive women. And I went through this myself. And my mindset was this: oh my God, I'm not getting engaged to a woman who is a Victoria's Secrets model on paper. Is there something wrong with me? So I had to dissolve a lot of stuff around that. But I'm like, hang on. I love this woman and see her for who she is and the depth of the woman. I'm so attracted to her. And I'm so in love with her. And she sees me for who I am. And then I had to go down, what does this matter? Am I playing into a cultural and society narrative of now I've got this woman perceived on paper as a Victoria's Secret model so that then I will get acceptance from external sources, which is insane. Then I had to pull it back myself. And I'm like, if there's no one on this earth, would I be with this woman? Absolutely. So then I realized it was only an external validation that I was seeking. And then when I dissolved a lot of that, I'm like, I'm with a woman who cares and deeply loves me and sees me and accepts me for who I am. And I've had interviews like this before where she's sitting right here where I'm saying this, where I'm like, she's like, I'm not a Victoria's Secret model, but I thought you were going to be Bill Gates and a billionaire kind of vibe. So I'm like, it's like the opposite kind of the coin where it's dissolving the fantasy around of this and being really clear with the person who's in front of me. And do they see me and do I feel more free? And does my heart really expand and open when I'm in this person's presence? That's what I'm asking myself consistently. And that's why I got down on one knee. I said, you're my person and thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's tie this in with performance anxiety. So at the world at large, does being with one person help performance anxiety? Because I imagine if you're going through a lot of new people, it would make it more difficult, would it, or not?
Yeah, a lot of the problems that men have with performance anxiety, it's because of they'll say, I've got this new woman. When I'm in a long-term relationship, I have no problems of getting it up and keeping it up and I have no premature ejaculation. I'm like, cool, that's interesting. And then I kept inquiring over all these years. I've been doing this stuff for over a decade now. And then I inquired as well. I'm like, when you're by yourself and you're like self-pleasuring and just touching yourself, do you have a problem with premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction? No. I'm like, okay, they have no problems when it's a long-term relationship. So then they're emotionally connected and they're not having any problems doing it in self-cultivation ways, then it must be deeply connected to the emotional and mental and the block there and the willingness to really open that up. So when that clicked, I'm like, this is why so much performance stuff is connected through men's non-expression and not actually opening up about breathing deeply. If I go back to like the full like house, men are not breathing deeply through their body. Of course, they can do different like breathing exercises and really circulate the energy. Great, doing that. But as simple as like when men get to the bedroom, most of the time they're stuck. And if you're stuck and you're not breathing, then you're not going to feel more pleasure and presence, breath, and then sound. Think about how hot it is. Gemma, you probably made some beautiful noises in the bedroom with partners in the past or your partner now. Great. How many times have you been with a partner who didn't make any noise and just because it's not manly apparently to make noise in the bedroom? Where this is like, I'm eradicating all that bullshit. And it ties into what you're saying because if men aren't making noise, again, they're not feeling more pleasure and presence. And then sometimes a woman's like, is he okay? He's not making any noise. That's when I'm in the bedroom, like vocalizing and letting out that, what's really happening through the vocal expression so she can feel the depth of who I am. Breath, sound, and then movement. Instead of just like most guys are stiff, like I was, and just making love like a board and tense in the body, breathing deeply, making noise, and actually moving my body more of that rhythmic way. And number 4 is this whole movement about dirty talk. It's fucked. Sorry, excuse my French, but it's like let's do dirty talk, and that's how you be a real man and you're masculine. I'm like, what are you talking about? Great. If you want to say derogatory things in the bedroom to your partner that turn you on, that's great. But dirty talk isn't just specifically about what you want to say. That might be this alternate fantasy in your mind that is a put down to a woman, or like a negative thing like you dirty little X, Y, and Z, which can be. But what about that's why I call it sexual expression. And that's why I call it like breath, sound, movement, vocal expression in the bedroom. And maybe the hardest thing for a man to say is, I love you. I deeply appreciate you, while looking her deep in the eyes. Now, one's not right nor wrong. That's not what I'm getting at. But sometimes the hardest thing for a man to do is slow down, go slow in the bedroom, and just gently caress her and let her know how much he appreciates her. And instead of pinning her down and just going really savagery and like choking her and pulling her hair, or maybe the opposite's true. Maybe he's really good at being that really nice and soft and gentle in the bedroom and caressing. But then when it comes to the savagery part, he really has a tough time expressing that beast aspect through vocal expression and through the physical actions. So that's why when I'm tying this to soft, silly, savage, and then I break it down with those 4 hows, then what I get men to do to tie it all full circle to what we're saying, I get men in a state where they picture their perfect partner and they're making love to her on their mattress by themselves, just moving their body, and they're expressing breath, sound, movement, vocal expression in the soft. Then they do it in the savage. Then they do it in the silly. And then by doing this over and over, they do this for about 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how long they do this for. It's a simple exercise. If you're at home watching this, find a soft song, find a silly song, find a savage song, put those songs on, and move your body, breath, sound, movement, vocal expression through those songs. And then when you do this over and over again, and then when you're with your partner again, I recommend doing this for a 10-day challenge, 10 minutes a day. Then when you're with a partner, how much more freely will you be expressed because you practice this by yourself? And this might sound silly at first, like, am I making love to a mattress and no one's there? But then when if you go, I'm a scientific guy, I'm a very logical guy, go read the book Psycho-Cybernetics about the connection between the imagination and the body. And then when you do this, and then the practice over and over, and then when you can practice in your own zone, because guys think, okay, I'm in the little leagues, I'm going to go straight to the NBA. I'm like, you haven't even like practiced first. So the practice and the cultivation in the bedroom by doing this, and then they do this. How many times I've had women do it and men do it, and then you're, oh, I feel so good because they feel expressed, because they can start here and then there's no one around. My bed's right behind me. I can fold that out and then do that. And then when I've done that, I just feel more alive and awake for the day and way more charged up. And then I'm with my partner. When I'm with her, I can feel more comfortable expressing the soft, silly, and savage in the bedroom and oscillate between those throughout the connection. And this is going to, like, I don't like the word cure, but this is going to truly revolutionize the world when it comes to sexual expression, because no one has really broken it down to an art and a science. It's more just express yourself. What's your fantasy, which is absolute ludicrous. So I just really appreciate even just the opportunity to express this. And I really can't wait to send this to your audience for free. I don't want anything. I'm in the place in my business where it's a lot about contribution and giving back. And I really can't wait, because I've done over 20 retreats, and this was like our IP behind the closed doors. But now it's like when men and women can do this separately, then come together. Because what happens in relation as well, when most men and women are in relation, they just go, cool, our sexual outlet is each other, but still having that cultivation exercise by yourself. So then you can feel more free and connect more deeply to your own sexual sovereignty. So then you can have a heightened and more pleasurable state with your partner.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So, how much of performance anxiety is linked to fear of true intimacy, connection? Like, as you said, slowing it down so you're actually aware of your feelings and connecting, and not just hitting the final act straight away. Because you said look into her eyes. I mean, that's sounds simple enough, but it's not always easy. So,
Yeah.
how does that work? How does a man become more able to be intimate and slow down and connect? I know you just gave those exercises, but how does it all relate? Could that be the reason of
Yeah.
a lot of anxiety?
Yeah, there's so much into it. Like, I recommend that men, I encourage them, ask the hard questions and say the hard things in the relationship. And sometimes it's that fear of like, hey, I'm really nervous of going slow in the bedroom with you. I don't know why, because he might be this big burly guy, really jacked up with tattoos. He doesn't have anything to prove in more of the savagery, especially if you can take her in the bedroom really rough and rugged, which is so beautiful as that expression of the beast. But then that softness, it maybe be like that is weakness. He's not a man if he does that. So the stories that are playing, and then for the opposite, so it's not one or the other. I see it as the intimacy of the expression of all soft, silly, and savagery inside of the bedroom. And then when a man can really delve into all of those, and maybe he's just very soft and gentle in the bedroom, which she loves. But then when it comes to the savagery element, he might have seen, just being super real about this, he might have seen that his mum was getting beat up by his dad over years and years and years. So then he's like, I don't want to be rough in the bedroom with my partner because that's wrong because of that story. So this is by doing the exercise I was saying before, it's like it's helping to eradicate these stories. And even if like you're feeling like shit, this brings on a lot, it's just slowly going through the step by step. Or like for men, usually it's like with the slowness, which you're saying, I'm not a man if I go slow. Or I feel very uncomfortable by doing the eye contact. Just start off where it's a little bit at the edge and maybe holding that eye contact for a little bit and then breaking it. And then, but not judging themselves. So many men are all in or all out where they feel like they have to be like, I have to be the best straight away, which I know I did, very high achieving men. I have to be the best straight away or nothing, instead of going, how can I incrementally build this up and look at this person? And then when I feel something in my heart, hey, this is coming up for me when I look deep in your eyes. I want to connect with you, but at the moment, I don't know how. And even on the retreats, when we run, we have guys do some very, very intense things, all with their clothes on. And one of the exercises they do sex positions with one of the women there with their clothes on in front of like sometimes 6 to 10 other men. And then people give feedback. So talking about the intimacy, this guy stopped in front of everyone's like, hey, I need a moment. Can you help me move through this exercise with you? So he said this to the woman and she melted. She goes, she see he's a very powerful man in his business and financial life and other areas of his life. But in that moment, just that vulnerability from the heart brought them so much closer together. And this is why I'm a huge advocate of soft, silly, and savage, because if they don't have this balance, it's like this man without a backbone. And I want this really beautiful man who's so deeply loving and caring. But then what's also deeply loving and caring is that man with that backbone who has that self-sovereignty. It's a huge difference inside and outside the bedroom. Because if it's like, hey, what do you want to do always? And we're talking about the intimacy, they're losing the intimacy for themselves of like, hang on, go back to what we're talking about with those exercises, with the expression, with that Mioch method of going through the soft, silly, and savage and really moving through that, which will help them cultivate the depth of intimacy for themselves. And then that will be expressed in the relationship with their partner. So it all goes back to self, then to other, and then together.
Yeah. I love
I'm
what
trying to I'm not trying to dive too deep, but I'm trying to give a high level overview so you can take the conversation wherever you need.
Yeah, no, I want to go back to presence because, talking about eye gaze now for women, of course, we get turned on emotionally. It's not just physically I don't know, it might be more physical with the men, but, emotionally. So to actually be present, that she feels you're present, that you are looking at her, not just interested in getting inside her. You're making love to her whole body, starting with the eyes and, wherever else or, whatever else you want to start. But it's not just let's get to the final act. And that will turn her on more maybe than physical touch of a guy who she feels just is doing it because he feels he has to go through the motions, right?
Sure. I always say to men, don't do something if you feel like you need to do something to get an outcome because you'll feel it. Do you know what you said about that? You are so, so right. I do a really simple exercise as a foundation exercise to help men. I have 3 women lined up and I get the women to rate these men on a scale of 1 to 10 because men are mostly metrics driven when it comes to this. And I want to show them from a standpoint. Ladies, can you please rate these men on a scale of 1 to 10 on the hug and give the feedback about what you felt from each gentleman? And the guys at the start going, dude, why are we doing a hugging exercise? This sounds so ridiculous. But then when the women give these men a hug and they hug each other, and then they write the scores on the blackboard, and then they can't see their results of what they got about how safe, and the metric is basically how safe and how comfortable they felt in that hug, in that embrace, and how much they feel like they could just let go. And then when the results come in, all the women pretty much have the exact same scores, what they've given for each, like for that same guy. And then the women will start to go, I felt X, Y, and Z. So it's like if you hear it from one person, it's okay. 2 people, but then pattern recognition is in with 3. So then when they're getting feedback and go, I felt this from you, hang on a second. If this is just a hug, nothing more with clothes on, how perceptive and emotionally aware are women? Way more than us men. So guys are unconsciously, and I was having sex so unconsciously for such a long time. So if I bring it back to just foundational principles of a hug, and a woman can read the man's mind basically from that, this is where the big epiphany moments of like, wow, she can read me from this. If I'm making love from a point of view where it's like I'm going for an outcome, and if you're watching this and you're in the bedroom and a woman's ever turned around and said to you like, where are you? What are you doing? What's going on? Is everything okay? Or she just like kind of stops and she's like, I'm not really feeling this. She's saying you're not present. Where are you? So
Yeah, so good because as a woman, as I did mention before, but we'll definitely feel the difference. Are you making love to us or are you just wanting to get off inside of us? Like there's such a huge difference. And obviously, then to bring it back to performance anxiety, if one of the performance anxieties is to make her orgasm, if she feels that disconnect, it's going to be so much harder, right?
yeah, and that the big thing as well, and that's such a common terminology. I even use it for some marketing. I'm going to make a woman come or
Right.
make her come. You can't make her come. That's the thing. And when men go, I made her come, I gave her this many orgasms. No, no, you didn't. She was already very orgasmic herself, or she can get herself off without you. That's the difference. Great. Men can learn there's this point where you can learn so many techniques and all these understanding about women and how they operate from an anatomy point of view and how to help facilitate an orgasm. But I can't give her an orgasm because only she can do that for herself. And then when men have that epiphany, it's like, oh, wow, I'm here to facilitate a place where she feels safe and she feels comfortable, where there's no judgment around her orgasm and her pleasure and encouragement of her full sexual expression. And then when that ends up happening, she can orgasm because she's allowed herself to. this is where this paradox of men go, I can do this. Like, dude, no. Absolutely not. And then also take into consideration looking at the woman who you're with and looking at her body language and her way she's expressing herself. And not that a man's a psychologist to a woman's sexuality, not at all, but like understanding like, hey, I can feel you're a little bit like holding back here. Is everything okay? She's like, oh, thank God you asked, because of this, and this happened in the past. This guy I used to have sex with used to beat me up, and I can't really get past this point of orgasm, or I can only have one, because anytime I'd have more, he'd always be like, what are you doing? Or he'd just like make me feel bad for orgasming, or he'd like look at me weird, or I'd feel a bit like self-conscious about my expression. So half the time I'm delving, that's why I said ask the hard questions. When anytime I look at a woman's face, I'm like, what's going on really? And she's like, well, this happened in the past with this man. I didn't feel comfortable saying this, but I feel comfortable with you. So my idea is the depth of comfortability that's created consistently, which will allow the depth of the emotional expression, which will allow the depth of her orgasm. And this is why I always say, firstly, let go. How can I facilitate a place of just with my partner that she can let go the most? Then she can flow, then she can blow. A little bit of a joke, but it actually makes sense from an orgasmic threshold point, because if you can't even have that place of like let go, then why would she go through that process and really give herself up to be able to have that orgasmic bliss with you?
Yeah. And of course, her turn on starts way before you get in the bedroom, right? Especially if, you're in the same house, you're communicating a lot. It's everything that's gone on for the past 20, well, even, however long has accumulated to either facilitate the whole experience or hinder it, right?
Yeah, it's not jump on Sheila, let's go.
So let's talk about women. How can we help men? Well, is help the right word? How can we ease men's performance anxiety?
Great question. Most women are absolutely incredible. Anytime I have been in the bedroom and I couldn't get it up, or I've spoken to clients and they came too quickly, or etc., most women are just so phenomenal when it comes to that. Just be really understanding of the man who's in front of you, and just remember that his performance is usually linked through him not feeling safe yet and him not feeling comfortable. It usually has nothing to do with you as a woman, and don't take it personally. If a man can't get it up, don't think, am I not sexy enough? Am I not turning him on? Is there something I'm not doing? Just look at him with so much love and appreciation and just be like, oh my goodness, it's no big deal whatsoever. Stop being silly. It's all right. Take your time. We got all the time in the world. And you know what? That's no big deal. Come here. Let's just really relax and enjoy. And then if a man's beating himself up a little bit, just like, you don't need to, really. It's fine. There's no need to do that. So that constant encouragement and that constant like assurance and just like that loving presence, that is what you can give to a man. And then when he feels that safety and that care, then he can truly relax into his body. And then most of the time, that will be enough. And it might take 1 or 2, 3 times. And never go to a man with that. It's more about the tonality that you can say to a man. Tonality is so key, because a woman can come from like, what's going on? Why are you not getting it up? Where it's like more of attacking. But if you're like, hey, is there any reason that it didn't go up? And if it's completely fine, but if there's any way I can support you, I'm here. Beautiful smile, open heart, and let him know that you're supporting him. Because that moment he feels challenged and attacked in that moment, shut down. And if we tie back to the start of the conversation, how many times that women won't come because they don't feel safe, or they don't feel that same thing? Like, that's why we can't make a woman come. She can only come when she feels truly safe and secure with the man. So I'll say the same thing to a woman. Hey, just want to see, like, is there anything else I can do? So then like you can feel really comfortable in this experience because you know I really care about you and I really enjoy being in this situation with you. And I've got your back and I'm not going anywhere. Saying that, oh, because one of the woman's biggest fears is like, will she go somewhere? Will he go somewhere from the women I've been with? And just like letting them know I'm not going anywhere and just really embrace this moment with each other. Or set a really clear container beforehand and boundaries with the sexual connection so they know what this is. So there's no ambiguity of the connection.
Yeah. Again, it's come up the difference between, going in with the aim to orgasm or the aim to connect. Now, with the like, how important is every making love episode of making love for the end goal being orgasm? I mean, in your opinion, is there times when you can just go connect, go halfway, and maybe put off? Does that build the
Yeah.
ease performance anxiety?
A little tip for men. If you're feeling disconnected from your partner, stop ejaculating for 2, 3 days. If you're used to ejaculating every single day, just see the difference in your body. And then you're like, well, I feel horny. I got blue balls and I'm just like, really got this extra energy. I'm like, great. If you go read the book, like Think and Grow Rich, use that, cultivate that energy and you can direct that somewhere else. But it's a high level overview of that. But when you really learn to sit with your sexual energy and just like stop ejaculating so much, I don't want to go into the whole like non-ejaculatory orgasms and things like that. But if you can just go into a connection with a partner, like we can just explore and play, and there doesn't need to be an end goal. If we put it in simple terms of that, what will happen for both parties, it'll actually create more pleasure and you'll probably get closer to ejaculating much more quicker if it's taken you a long time, and you'll feel way more relaxed and deeply connected because there's no end goal of ejaculation. That's the paradox again of like, if I take away the goal of ejaculation, then the closeness and the connection will be so much more, and you'll probably get yourself closer because you don't feel this pressure. If we go back to just simpleness of like, the more pressure I take off a woman, the more pressure the woman can take off a man, the better the sexual connection. Every time I'm in the bedroom, I'm not thinking this is going to happen. Most of the time, when I say most of the time, unless I've set up a scene with a woman like, hey, wait at the house, wear this, do X, Y, and Z, from more of a power play dynamic and like role play dynamic. But then if I'm just in the bedroom, it's like that making love from that point of view. I'm going in there with no set agenda, and I don't know how our bodies are going to move in this rhythmic dance. I've just gone in there. I'm going to take it moment by moment, kiss by kiss, which will allow the unfolding of this experience. And then I see men and women in relationships where they go, oh, our relationship, our sex has got boring. It's because the presence has been dissipated and they're trying to do the same monotonous thing that they did last time. The sex for me doesn't get monotonous because, of course, it's the same position, but it's like I'm a different man, and the growth that I've had, I'm a different man from the day before. And she's a different woman from the day before. So I feel like I'm having a sex with a new woman every single day if we can drop into the deepest present of that moment. Now, does that happen all the time? Absolutely not. But that is my goal without a goal, to be in the bedroom, to be the deepest in the presence there, which helps with that exercise, which I was explaining before. So then it allows my fullest expression of my soft, silly, and savage. And then I can go into my breath, sound, movement, vocal expression of all of this. So then it's like I'm expressing myself of how I'm feeling right now, and so is she. And that's true presence. It's the expression of what is happening internally. That is presence. And then when you feel like held back, you're not being present. And this is why it ties back to the exercise. So then men can be fully expressed in the moment because they can give themselves more permission to actually do what they want to do in the bedroom, in a place that's safe, in the comfort of their own home, in their own bedroom. And that's when it starts. This is why it all starts again with me, with you. If you were at home watching this remember, when you're pointing at the person, there's three fingers pointing right back at you, at your sexuality. This is that depth, and that is the presence. The presence comes from breath, sound, movement, vocal expression, and then the depth of the soft, silly, and savage. This is why I harp on about this so much. This is why I'm like, want to contribute so much to the sexual landscape and educational space, because it's done such a poor job of being able to articulate this in a very clear format, in a very clear structure that actually makes sense for men to go through this experience, to have these experiences they truly want, to have that presence, to have that pleasure, to take the experience off the outcome. And with that exercise, it takes the experience off the outcome as well. That is why I can't wait to get into the world. And if like you don't have the audio and you're just listening to this now, just seriously, just find a soft, silly, and savage song and try it for yourself. Pitch your perfect part and make love in those three energies, and everything will change in your life. Everything. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've been testing this on men and women, hundreds and hundreds of people, to know the effects of this. That's why I added into my morning routine, and I see how different I feel. And it's just electric. It's like that cultivation of the sexual energy going, poof, I'm fully here, I'm fully present, let's get it.
So good, Andrew. Can we break it down to the difference between doing and being?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. If you're having performance anxiety, you're trying to do. And if you're not, you are being. Most of performance issues in the bedroom, ED and PE, are because of trying to do instead of trying to be. It just, yeah. 100%. That's all it is. All I want is people to stop acting in the bedroom, and the act stops when they start expressing their true sexual expression without. This is what happens. So many years I've tried so much to try impress. I wrote a book. You can see it in the background here somewhere. It's called Best She Ever Had. I wrote this like a few years ago. The reason I wrote that, because I thought to be the best she ever had, that would be because I had so much of a void. My void was like, as soon as I become good in bed, then women will like me. Like, yeah, they liked me initially, but then that was like, that's why my void became my value, as DeMartini would say, my value of learning how to be great in bed, because a woman told me I was shit. So then I learned all this, and then I went full circle, and it sounds counterintuitive. It's kind of like when I hear a lot of business advice, and it's so true. And anytime I've seen it in my business, like, okay, don't focus on the money and then you'll get money. Back then I was like, when I was really broke, I was like, yeah, but I want money. But then it's like, focus on service and you'll get as much money as you want. I'm like, great. Now I'm like, much more can I contribute to this field of sexuality with what I'm talking about today, and just contribute and truly change people's lives. And that's where I see it deeply with sexuality. How much can men and women give to themselves sexually and be so expressed? This meditation is not just for men. Like I'd love to hear you give me your perspective. You do it, Gemma. Like, do the soft, silly, and savage, and put on the songs. And it's probably like all those. If it's coming more from a spiritual world, like the ecstatic dances and things like that, moving your body in that rhythmic dance, but doing it, picturing your perfect man or the energy of your perfect man, and moving through that. And then visualizing that and letting that presence come. Oh my God. And you haven't even touched yourself. I haven't even touched myself when doing this. Then adding self-pleasure principles. This is why this is why I'm so passionate about this, because it's not a, how can I say this? It's not any theory anymore. It's backed up. And this is why I'm just so confident in what I'm saying. And I have no waveringness about this. And I go try. This is why we were only doing it on retreats. I'm like, no, I want to get this to the world, to really show people, to deliver this. And so then they can try it for themselves. I'm like, cool, don't believe me? Try it for yourself. And that's where I've got to this point in my own evolution of my own journey of sexual expression. And I keep delving into this. How can I be more expressive, my soft, silly, and savage? Where do I feel a little bit off today? Okay, for me, I'm very comfortable in my savage. I need to cultivate more, and I want to cultivate more my softness. So it's just like a constant like playing. I'm very good with my silly in the bedroom as well. A lot of men aren't great with silly in the bedroom because I think it's time to get into the bedroom, as I said before, but just to like reiterate, they might be having a really fun, jovial, playful date with a woman if they're dating. Then it gets to the bedroom and they go, it's time to be stiff. I'm like, what are you doing? I said to this guy, think about this, Gemma. Think about one of the most attractive men you've ever been with. I know that's subjectivity, but one of the most attractive men you've been with. He can play guitar. He's fit as anything. Really funny guy. Really loving, caring, kind. All that. But then when he got to the bedroom, I said to him at the retreat, I'm like, when you get to the bedroom, I guarantee you're stiff like a board and you don't make any noise. He's like, how'd you know? I'm like, I just know. I need you to bring that person, that kingly energy you are outside the bedroom, inside the bedroom, and continue it on. That's what she wants. Because if not, you're not being present because you're stifling yourself of the man who you truly are. So my idea with the sexual stuff is like who you are inside and outside the bedroom. It's just the same. And bringing that to the bedroom, and who I am inside the bedroom, I bring that to the world. And who I am outside the bedroom, I bring that to the bedroom of the deepest expression of all. And then when we can do that, that's when the performance anxiety will go. Do you know what's fascinating as well, Joe? When I see women go through this, women cry most of the time because when they're going through more of the savagery, am I allowed to be this? Men cry when they go through the softness and the silliness. Am I allowed to do this? It's so powerful. I've never seen so many men and women cry just from doing this because they feel like I'm allowed to be me. Finally, I'm allowed to be fucking me in the bedroom all these years. And you know what the craziest shit of this is? The guy's like, I had the best sex on a mattress, on the floor, on a yoga mat, and no one was around. You know why they said that? It wasn't because of the technical sex like that. It was because they go, I've never felt so freely expressed to be all of me inside of the bedroom. I've held this back for so many years because I've always thought, what does that other person want? And I hope they will like me. So this is going to clear all other people's judgment, or so much of it, the more they do this over and over, of what the other person thinks, and the more freely expressed they are, it'll be that mirror. And then the other person will be like, thank you for allowing me to be freely expressed because of your own expression.
So good. And Andrew, you know, this is brilliant because, okay, so, you know, I interviewed 100 men for Heart Warriors. And if I had to pick one theme that came up repeatedly and repeatedly in the hero's journey that we expanded on, it was discovering, well, for the men, authenticity, being their authentic selves, not being who their father wanted or their teacher wanted, their expectations of self, just being their true selves and coming into that authentic stance. And now you're bringing that into the bedroom and saying, look, this is the best sex you're ever going to have. So I just love how that ties everything together. This authenticity is such an important place of self-discovery, right? And permission, allowance to be truly yourself.
It's the authenticity through your soft, your silly, your savage. We've all got that inside of us. And when we can give ourselves permission to really keep diving into that, that's when it changes. And how to do that, we can do that through breath, sound, movement, and vocal expression, and keep diving deeper and deeper into that. So that's the framework. I'm not holding anything back. That's how you can do this. And you have no excuse to not do this at home now. If you're watching this on the other side, and it's freaking exciting. And there is going to be a sexual evolution of men and women by doing this, just from this. And the authenticity, 100%, with those 100 men you interviewed. I can only imagine the depths of the men's soul who you interviewed there. And men touch on the sexuality, but I'm all in on this, as you can see today. And I really hope, I don't know if you have any more questions, but just so far with what we've covered, that you do this for yourself and you get the benefit, because you deserve to have the best sex of your life. And it starts with you.
Well, Andrew, I do usually go a bit over, well, depending on the conversation, if you have any more time, or if not, we can wrap it up.
Let's go for it. We can do it, Gemma. I love speaking to you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. So I wanted to go outside the bedroom now. So what
Sure.
sort of things, for example, stress comes to mind, testosterone levels. What are some factors outside the bedroom that might be just on the whole influencing, you know, a man's state of being in the bedroom?
Wow. So many things. When I talk mainly to businessmen and entrepreneurs, it's usually their business. Their business is their biggest stress. But then if we tie it to relationships, sometimes it's their partner. And I'm like, okay. So I know you've been married before and divorced and things like this. I say this now. Your number one investment is not your crypto portfolio or not your stocks or your property. It's the woman you're with, because that will cause you the biggest stress, or it will cause you the most alleviation and help you rise to that next level if you don't get that right. So I have seen men who, I used to think it was BS when people are like, oh, I'm stressed because of work and business. Yeah, great. But then if men don't have that loving relationship and they have a woman who makes them a better man, I used to thought that was BS. There's no way a woman can make me a better man. It just sounds like a cliche from a movie. But now I've found that I'm like, this woman allows me to be a better man. I'm like, oh, I've hit a jackpot. But I wouldn't have met her so many years ago. It wasn't the work I did. The biggest stress as well is men not investing in themselves, not just for sexuality or business training or whatever other training, for training that is to help them feel emotionally expressed. I actually just finished off just recently with my emotional coach, and what causes the stress is men not actually really opening up about what's going on for them, about the man who they are and what's actually meaningful, instead of living, I just want to have X, Y, and Z. I don't want to say exactly what that is because it's really subjective to each man, but they're living someone else's life and trying to get X, Y, and Z, so then they can feel better, so then they can show this person to prove. That's what I think creates the biggest stress. What it did for me, it's like in society, if we look at it very objectively, of like, man's success is he gets the Lamborghini, he gets X car, X house, and then that is success. But as we know, that's very vacuous and just a very external way of looking at it. But then if you did that for someone else's approval, that unconscious stress will cause way more friction down the line. Instead of going, great, get the car and make tons of money, but know deeply the why under it, so you don't get to a point 5 years later, I was doing this so then my dad would love me. That's why I'm a huge proponent of doing really deep inner work on my, like, it's called reparenting the parts internally. And that is definitely not my specialty. I have someone who helps me dissolve and uncover that and unwind certain things, hence being in this position of, how can I break it down, Gemma? For 9 months, I had millions and millions of dollars. I had a dream ex-girlfriend, fake boobs, like on paper. And she was an ex-sex worker. I paid for my 30th at a beautiful, beautiful place in Bali, like all my friends. And I'm like, cool, I've made it. Yeah. But then that all got ripped away from me because of my own internal state. So the stress and the demons internally caused so much more stress because I didn't look into that. And then when I really cleared a lot of that stuff out, I cried for 9 months every single day, bar 2 days, because of that pressure of like trying to be that man, trying to be this man. And because I didn't clear my unconscious stuff there, I lost everything. I lost that girlfriend, cheated on multiple women, and I ended up, yeah, losing all that money and going through that. I'm like, I believe if you don't be humble, the universe will humble you. And all that stress is amounted from like all these unconscious patterns that are playing out, that we're all playing out. But I just try and do my best to keep the ones that are more functional and uncover the ones that are not so functional, so then I can dissolve those and then I had that person help me clear those. But the reason I was crying is just getting more to the depth of who I am. And if you go back and watch my old YouTube videos, I was a very, very different man from all those years ago to where I am today. And I believe it's because of the depth of the work that I've done to be in this position. Now, there's always going to be challenges in life, but I just choose the challenges I have now instead of getting ruled by them and I feel like they take over my life. It's probably the best way to do that. Best way to say that.
It's incredible. And, obviously you can speak so well on this subject because you've lived it. You've been practically, every man. And I just can't wait to see, where you go in the months and years ahead. It's an incredible journey for you. All right, testosterone. How
Mm.
important is that? Does it deplete with age? What can men do?
It's a great question. Definitely not my area of expertise, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But there's this movement of men where they jump on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, injecting themselves, and they get stuff from the doctors, etc., like this. What I see is men just jump on testosterone replacement therapy, sometimes as a place of not even just because they have low testosterone levels. Most of the time, they get the doctor, they say it's a low testosterone levels, but then they can do this so then they can get more muscles and they inject all other sorts of things in their bodies. So it's a downward spiral by staying on that stuff long term. And I would love you to check out a guy with a company called Afro D. They actually have a supplement that helps men boost their testosterone levels naturally. And there's 4 different herbs in it. And then they take these herbs, and I've done that for myself. And he's actually a doctor who specializes in the testosterone and like doing it naturally. So there are ways to do it naturally, of course, like doing it sleep, cold water, things like that, all this stuff that's been researched on the internet. But if you're a man just going, I want to go jump on TRT so then I can get bigger, so then women will like me, or I'm going to do this. There are so many side effects of TRT, like negative side effects. Go do your research. For me, I'm completely natural. I went just from a physical point of view. When I went through all that hardship, I'm like, what can I control? So it's a very stoic thing of way of looking at life. And I ended up going to the gym. So obviously going to the gym boosts up your testosterone naturally as well. I went from 82 kilos to 95 kilos in a year and over a year and a half. I just went to the gym. I pushed really hard, heavy weights, and then I just ate a lot of food. And there's so many ways you can boost it naturally. And if men are going to go down that route, look into why they want to inject synthetic testosterone into their body, because as soon as they stop taking it, the effects on the body are immense. Now, there's so many men going, I just don't do it. I just see the benefits now. Yes, short term, but then we're in this for a very long term gain. But you can go check out that company, Afro D, and they have natural supplements. And then also they have a doctor there who they really scientifically break it down. Like, here's what your testosterone levels are now, and here's what they can be if you go through this process naturally. So I'm just a big, huge advocate, as you can hear, of natural remedies and moving the body and cold showers and other things like that, opposed to jumping on synthetics.
Yeah, love it. Great. So, Andrew, what else needs to be brought into this conversation that I haven't asked you yet?
Inside or outside the bedroom.
Oh, anything to do with performance anxiety?
I like what you said before. The reason I can speak so clearly and so just eloquently on this, because I know. I'm not trying to, because I watched a YouTube video or I read this book on this. The reason I'm actually going to quote Andrew Tate, as much as a lot of things I don't agree with him, but there's some beautiful things that he says. It's like, instead of trying to, as much as like there's so many men out there trying to play video games and like build their character there, it's like building their character in life for the man who they are. Like going through that and like, okay, I'm going to build my character on this video game. No, I've really put like, how can I build the character in my real life, which is the hard thing. And then anytime that I look into like why I might watch certain Netflix series or I might eat a certain food, what is under this suppressive mechanism of why am I actually doing that? So I want men to ask these deeper questions, work on their character, which is the man who they are, and deeply, deeply do the things that I've said on this podcast. Like, if you really wanted to clear your performance anxiety, this has taken me over a decade traveling the world, like thousands of men I've worked with, to be in this position to learn this stuff. And I'm just giving it away now for free from this point of view. And I just really want men to actually try this and do this and sit with the uncomfortability. When you're sitting in the soft and the silly and the savage, this is what I see is in the society that men are more like want to theorize instead of internalize. And they got this knowledge, but it's not wisdom, because then the wisdom is actually in the doing. So the biggest thing I can wrap up is do the things, actually really do that and have your own experience. And the reason I could make up my own method is because I just constantly tested and tweaked. And then when I kept doing things, new insights would pop up through the realizations of doing things that I learned from mentors. And then I'd have my own epiphanies. And then that would generate that momentum to dive deeper and deeper into this topic about performance anxiety. And you're not fucked up, you're not broken. It's just we were never giving a clear roadmap of how to be that certain man in the bedroom and how to be and not do. And just as men, it's like this pressure of like in the bedroom, we have to perform, we have to show her that we're the man. But then when we can dissolve that and we do this meditation, this is when we can become the actual man, and women will feel this and will feel way more expressed to be that man that we've always wanted to be. And she's always wanted us to be. So it sounds like it's all backwards what I'm saying, but I believe that is the key, which is like, give me the technique now. Like, go watch my YouTube. All the techniques are there. Like, you don't need more techniques than that.
Yeah. Oh, I had a really good question now to wrap up with. Oh, God, I've forgotten. Okay. Alrighty. So while I think of that, let people know where they can find you, please, Andrew. What services do you offer?
You can just go on my YouTube, Sexual Quantum Leap. Really simple. Or just put my name in on Google and you'll find something. And then you can just go have a look from stuff from there. There's so much free stuff and you can go explore. And if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, that's also fine.
So good. And where can people find this wonderful meditation that you're offering?
I'll send it to you and then you can actually just give it to your audience. And the biggest thing I would love to hear is, like, if you got something out of this episode, that's great. I actually only want you to send me an email or a message if you did the audio, so then I can really hear your progress, because that's what makes me happy. That's why I say yes to interviews like this with Gemma, because I love being able to share this. And then when someone's like, I did what you said and I got a result, that's all I care about. Like if you go, oh, Andrew, that's a really nice episode, that's not going to change my life. I want you to really have that deep impact on your life. And then you can share that with someone else. So then they can do that, because there's so many men suffering in silence. And you can, if you're watching this at home and you're a man thinking, how can you help support that change in sexual evolution and that for other men, be that change you want to see, as Gandhi would say, be that change you want to see. And that's what I'm doing. So then you can pass it on to the next man. So you can pass it on to the next man. So you can pass it on to your children. And I even say this on retreats to men. I don't want to see your kids in the future. I don't want them to come to my retreats. I want you to be that teacher for them that I was to you.
I've remembered. I didn't bring a pen with me today, but I have remembered. So how true is the saying, you can only connect with another to the depth that you can connect with yourself? You know, we've been talking about this connection.
That was my Facebook post the other day, wasn't it?
I didn't say, but it's been, you know, I mean, I've probably even made a Facebook post about it myself at some point, but I mean, I've always been pretty connected to myself, but I would think that that is true, you know. What do you think?
Yeah. The more I look into this, I don't know your experience on this, but everything's a mirror. I look at my relationships in the past, I'm like, everything's a mirror. The simple 101 line of that. I'm like, it's hard to reflect on that sometimes. Like, damn, everything is a mirror. So I will only connect with a mirror of what I have really deeply internalized for my sexuality. It wouldn't make sense if I'm going to be with someone who's a virgin with a very, very lack of sexual experience for where I'm at. It doesn't make sense as an energetic match.
Yeah.
Like, and then the depth of the connection won't make sense either if it's like just everything's a mirror. If we look at like that, look at the sexual connect. I don't know, like you don't need to obviously say, but it's like look at the sexual having now as opposed to sexual having then, or like look at the how much more emotionally you expressed from when you were younger to where you are now. For me, I'm like, wow, all the women have only been completely of the man who I was and just trying to show that back to me consistently. And that's why I'm like, cool, we're here for a reason. The synchronicity here. And what's the synchronicity of who you're going to attract in the future for interviews and podcasts, and who's the synchronicity and vice versa of that. So I just constantly look at the little whispers that are there, and definitely couldn't agree with you more, in short.
For those who don't like the mirror analogy, and I use that, I like it, I see it like that, but it's also, in the quantum realm, as you said, it's an energetic, we attract someone of the same frequency, of the same energetic vibration, because that's the law of quantum physics. And that's how it's going to be. And it might not be obvious, but in their own way, they'll have that, that same either disconnect or heart connection as you. So yeah, great. Wow, 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 wow. Is there anything else that you need to say, Andrew, to wrap this up?
Thank you for the work you're doing with men in the world. Just being able to share your voice and have that supportive message for men to go, hey, men are suffering, women are suffering too, but just going, hey, there are so many good men in the world. You've interviewed over 100 of them. Wow, that's impressive feat just in itself. And where we said similar last time, like when women are dating and they're going, where are the good men? As you know, there are so many incredible men in the world. And for men, there's so many incredible women. It might be, I don't like the word hard, but it's definitely rare and they're out there. So,
Oh, definitely.
and just don't give up. And with the performance stuff, do the audio. Even if you don't do the audio, you just find 3 songs, soft, silly, and savage. It's super easy. And then you do this for yourself and you watch how much that will revolutionize your sex life.
You should do some playlists, like,
I do. I
yeah,
do have playlists.
playlists.
Yeah. I have your sexy songs on there.
Have you got, like, are they available to share? Like, or
Yeah. I could share my Spotify. It's just a soft, silly, savage playlist. Yeah.
yeah, like public share, or you just gonna
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. I got them. We've been collecting them for a little bit. So there's like, I'll sometimes just like in the morning, like, all right, cool. I'll put on my soft song, silly song, savage song. So I won't listen to the guided one. So then like the first step is like guided to help you move it. And then like you can do it by yourself and you find your own songs. And then you're like, whoa, I love that.
So good. Well, we'll drop all those links to the meditation, your playlist. That's brilliant. In the description below. So wow. Thank you so much, Andrew. I just love your journey and how you deliver what your embodied experience and just your growth and what you're bringing to the world. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, I don't have any other Men Speaks booked in, but maybe soon, we'll see. All right, bye.
That was great.